I remember one time I went to the grocery store and a small child near me screamed extremely loudly, and something about the pitch or the tone set me back into a flashback.
Holly Patterson has found some peace in the Blue Mountains, but it didn't come easy.
My background's in the intelligence community. I worked with a range of different confronting materials. The child abuse materials were the main thing that was confronting for me. It crept up. It definitely crept up.
Like many with post-traumatic stress disorder, she struggled for years to find a treatment that actually worked.
Falling asleep got scary for me, going to sleep. I was terrified to go to sleep at one stage.
Even with our best psychological treatments, we're still not able to sufficiently treat a third to a half of patients who will go on and have chronic, sometimes severe, lifelong symptoms from PTSD. There is a real momentum to the push to find better treatments.
Dr Andrew Koo has overseen the treatment of thousands of PTSD patients at Toowong Hospital in Brisbane.
So the Royal Commission into Veteran Suicide has shone a light on this problem, and it's bringing it into the consciousness of the larger Australian population.
There isn't a great drug for PTSD.
Dr Koo told the Royal Commission that without better treatments, many of his patients are managing their symptoms with a cocktail of antidepressants and antipsychotics, often so they can sleep without nightmares.
I sat down and I wrote down the drugs that I commonly see prescribed for PTSD, and I stopped when I got to 70 drugs that are regularly prescribed for this one condition.
They are on too many medications, and this could then lead to further morbidity and mortality as a result of that.
Medications within ex-service personnel, I think, are overused.
Luke Adamson has grappled with PTSD ever since his deployment a decade ago as part of Australia's longest war.
My incident that happened in Afghanistan was a very hot, dry day. So during summer, I actually really struggled with the atmospherics that replicate the situation of that day. I found myself not being able to sit in confined spaces again.
Rates of PTSD are highest among people who work in emergency services or in the military. Luke has been through the worst of it. He's just given his PTSD assistance dog, Prince, an early retirement.
Prince has always been by my side and he's helped me so much. He's got me to a place where I'm comfortable that I don't need him.
He's reached that place through rebuilding his social life, connecting with other veterans, and with therapy.
I did a lot of exposure therapy with my psychologist and psychiatrist, reflecting on how the event affected me and what was in my control and what was out of my control on that day, and then how my body would react.
The gold standard treatment for PTSD is prolonged exposure therapy. With a therapist, the patient is gradually taken through the traumatic memory. This often takes the form of weekly sessions lasting up to 10 weeks. After trying numerous different therapies, Holly Patterson remained haunted by her past.
Unfortunately, I was deemed treatment resistant. So in 2018, I attempted suicide. I remember lying in the hospital bed in Concord Hospital, just thinking, you have to go to Peru. This is your last option, is to go to Peru and go to the jungle.
Holly's dramatic decision was prompted by reports of US veterans with PTSD seeking out a psychedelic drug called ayahuasca, used in local rituals for centuries. She found the experience transformational.
My nightmares lessened significantly. My suicidal ideation had disappeared entirely.
We're in the midst of a global renaissance of psychedelic research.
Drugs like LSD, MDMA and magic mushrooms are now offering promising results in the treatment of PTSD.
The FDA has labelled MDMA a breakthrough treatment.
UK's first psychedelic-assisted therapy clinic.
Some of the world's leading medical institutions are now actively researching the use of psychedelics to treat mental health conditions, research that was once considered a no-go zone due to the war on drugs.
Psychedelic substances such as MDMA and psilocybin potentially represent a new class of mental health therapeutic. They are not medicines in their own right, and the trials are not looking at them as medicines in their own right. What they do is place patients in a state of ease, in a state of comfort, such that they can access and work with psychologists and psychotherapy, we're in a position where we have some very promising clinical data, but the mechanism by which these medicines exert their therapeutic effect is not fully understood. So you're doing LSD, psilocin, and TBG?
Yep.
In this Monash University lab, Chris Langmead's team is trying to unpick those mechanisms to understand why psychedelic-assisted therapy works and if whole new medicines could be created.
The lack of truly novel medicinal breakthroughs in the last 5 decades really is the missing piece that we're searching for.
MDMA is emerging as one of the most promising aids for PTSD therapy.
MDMA is a unique molecule. It has a number of effects on the brain. We know certainly that it seems to reduce the fear responses that patients encounter as they deal with memories as part of their psychotherapy.
I do believe that it will occupy a place in the treatment of this disorder in the not too distant future.
Patients may only need 2 or 3 doses of a substance such as MDMA that's taken at the same time as psychotherapy. The unanswered question in the field is, how long do these effects last? How long do patients remit from these conditions? And again, that's another active and ongoing area of research.
The Therapeutic Goods Administration says the evidence is promising, particularly for MDMA, but has so far resisted calls to loosen the controls on psychedelics to make them easier for doctors to prescribe, saying more studies are still needed.
There is a lot of hope for the future in terms of further research and further things being unearthed all the time.
And it comes down to individuals once again. We can't have a group approach to PTSD.
There's hundreds of thousands of people who have been through extremely traumatic events and are not coping. We need more options.